22nd day in November 2024. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on AM today. I'm Sunday Kolawole, and with me on the show is Folashade Okidan. Good morning, Shade. Good to have you with me.
Good morning, Sunday. Nice to be here. Good morning, good people of Ondo State.
All right, this morning, as usual, we start with a check on stories making headlines in the national dailies. The Daily Times is our first spot of call this morning, and leading the pack is on page 3 of the Daily Times newspaper. PDP greater than Wike Damagun, that's coming from the National Assembly caucus, assures party will bounce back. You find details of the story on page 3 of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Of course, on the front page, you find a picture of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. There on a courtesy call during the G20 Leaders Summit. Find that picture right there on the front page. Of course, still taking stories in the Daily Times newspaper, page 7. Camp to tackle insecurity in Borno local government areas. That's on page 7 of the Daily Times newspaper. And on page 9, reps reject 6-year single term for president, governors. There. On page 5, Gaza, ICC issues arrest warrants for Netanyahu, others. It's on page 5 of the Daily Times newspaper. Reforms yielding results despite challenges, Tinubu tells IMF chief in Brazil. That's find that also in the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Senate approves Tinubu's 1.77 trillion naira loan. It's on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Check details of this and many more in the Daily Times of this morning.
From the Daily Times, let's check the Daily Trust. On the Daily Trust this morning, we have the stories. Military seeks extradition as Finland jails EPA. You find the story on page 4 of the Daily Trust of this morning. Samuel EPA of the IPOB has been arrested in Finland. All right, we have this one also. Palestinians welcome ICC's arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Netanyahu is being charged for war crimes against the Palestinians. You'll find details of this on page 3 of the Daily Trust this morning. And still on the Daily Trust, girl 13 beats classmates to death in Kogi. What a sad one there. You find details of it on page 16 of the Daily Trust this morning. Kano government reunites 76 freed teenagers with families. The details of that is on page 7 of the Daily Trust as well. Reps reject 6-year single term for presidents and governors. The details of these is on page 11 of the Daily Trust. Grid collapse. NEC raises committee on national electrification. Perhaps that will stop the grid from collapsing or fix, the power issue. You find the stories, you find on page 6 of the Daily Trust.
Is it a case of raising a committee or really doing
but
something?
at least the committee, raising a committee is the beginning of saying, no, look, we're looking into the matter.
There's a piece I read many years ago, paralysis, and in that piece you find what is called too many talks and less action. It's so common in Nigeria. For everything you set up a committee. For the birthday of your president, there'll be a committee. For that of the wife, there's a committee. For the son, there'll be a committee. For the inauguration of a project, there'll be a committee. For the planning of the project, there'll be a committee. And then, at the end of the day, the project will still be abandoned. So what was the essence of the committee?
Maybe the question, and then the people or whoever set up the committee in the first place should query
what
the
is
committee
important,
for delivering.
It's not just about setting committees. It's about looking at what exactly is the problem and dealing with it. Now, are
Then
you
who
telling
does
me?
ignore committees?
Oh, beautiful. So you're telling me that the NERC, the National Electricity Regulatory Council, is moribund, non-functioning, cannot do what it should do. There's a Ministry of Power in this country. It's not capable. Then scrap it. What is the essence of committee upon committee? If the statutory statutory agencies are not doing what should be done, let them get the boot. You see, we talk too much, we do little, and that is why we're where we are today as a people. Until and except we begin to take actions where it matters, and not just setting up committees, sitting down. Now you only God knows how much will still be voted for the committee, and at the end of the day, I do not also know what will be the outcome of the committee. So there must be a serious way of really dealing with the issues. Enough of all of this window dressing and whitewashing.
Well, that's your perception of it. Well, let's hope that in no distant time we would see what this particular committee is able to do to the power sector in the
We
country.
can only hope.
Yes, we can only hope. So details of this read you find on page 6 of the Daily Trust this morning. Ex-federal scribe Amadu Kofi buried in Katsina. Details of that is on page 6 as well. And finally, from the Daily Trust, ACF suspends Chairman Usuma over unauthorized statement. You find details of that on page 7 of the Daily Trust. And that will be from the Daily Trust.
Let's check the Nation newspaper of this Friday morning, the 22nd day in November 2024. In the leading the park, Tinubu is speaking there. Relief measures for the poor, small businesses to go on. Relief measures for the poor and small businesses to go on. Tax reforms designed to further stimulate the economy. That's coming from Tinubu there. Find details on the front page. Of course, spilling to the inner pages of the Nation newspaper of this morning. 3 states get ultimatum to decide on state police. Kwara, Kebbi, Adamawa listed. That's also on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And then you find the picture of Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, laying the 2025 appropriation bill before the House of Assembly in Ikeja yesterday. Sanwo-Olu proposes 3.05 trillion naira 2025 estimates. Work to start on Green Rail Line. Well, Lagos State still leading the park as far as
transportation is concerned.
not even that. I'm talking about the fact that every November or December you find Lagos State government laying its budget ground. Laying it down before the the State Assembly, and then you find work on it, and that's why they could do this 12-year calendar of the fiscal year. It's important to always start early because they say early to bed is early to rise. So I think it's a good lesson that other states can also learn from there. What is more, you also find hard work being done by the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning in that state. Budget retreat upon budget retreat. I understand that a budget retreat is just being concluded where it is being held. Let's leave that out. And then you find a lot of hard work going on in ensuring that there is proper economic planning. No wonder the state is progressing. And then it's a lesson for other states to also take a cue from Lagos State. In those states, I understand that there are also a lot being done underground, but let it yield fruit to also enhance the early presentation of the estimates of each fiscal year to the State Assembly. That will also all go well for better planning and better execution. When you look at what we call budget performance, it's always a product of early implementation. If there's no early implementation, the budget performance will never reach the expected level.
I thank God you mentioned the issue of implementation, but you know that it is resources at the disposal of each state that they have to deploy, in the execution
Resources
of
are not
the
got from the
budget.
sky.
And some people will tell you that Lagos State it's like a nation on its own, because of the huge resources it has at its disposal.
Lagos State did not become a nation on its own, as it were. It's not a nation on its own. People describe it as such because of its economic viability, but it did not get to that point. We did in twinkle of an eye.
Maybe naturally endowed.
Hard work. You also find what some have called culminating efforts of successive administrations And that is why it's always important to have master plan and then adhere to it. We talked about the issue of setting up committee upon committee. You hardly can
Where
find
is committee that will bring the master plan? Sunday, let's move on.
when
Moving on.
Lagos State has a master plan.
Yes.
It's always been working on that. If you want to become the governor of Lagos State today, you know that
There's
this is where this
something you have
person
to
is
do.
ending it, and then I'm taking it from here and going on. Unlike in many other places, you find abandoned projects here and
Begin
there
again,
at every point in
always.
time, and then you find this political interference with governance. In many states, it's so rare to find that in Lagos State until we get to that point where our thinking is towards the welfareism of the people and goes beyond the primordial sentiments of political affiliations. That is when we can be talking of real development. That is the way to go, if you agree with me.
Okay.
Some more stories are from the Nation newspaper. House of Reps, 6 year single term bill for president. It's there. Of course, we've taken the rest of the stories in the other days. Let's move on.
All right. The daily next. Reps reject 6 year single tenure power rotation. You have moved to increase number of FCT High Court judges from 75 to 100. You find details of it on page 22 of the Daily Sun. What we think, are there more cases to be handled at the FCT? The number of judges has increased from 75 to 100. Well, you want to know? Check page 22 of the Daily Sun for details on that story, on why the increase is needed. Federal government to continue to prioritize social investment programs. Reforms have weakened Nigerians' purchasing power. Tinubu tells IMF MD. Yet, he believes it's yielding results. Please continue. Let's start from the front page of the Daily Sun to page 6 for details on that story. Sanwo-Olu presents 3 trillion naira budget proposal to Lagos State Assembly. You find details of that on page 30. Crisis hits ACF over 2027 presidency. The forum chairman suspended a new group, League of Northern Democrats rally ACF. You find the details of this on page 25 of the Daily Sun. Ekpa's arrest. Military hails Finnish police. Wants him extradited to face justice. Find details of that on page 6 of the Daily Sun this morning. And finally, from the Daily Sun and still on page 6, National Assembly approves Tinubu's new external borrowing plan of $2.2 billion. All right, that will be it from the Daily Sun.
Well, the story on the issue of ACF is the one leading the park in the Punch newspaper this morning. The Punch newspaper leads with that headline: Anti-Tinubu comments, ACF suspends chairman as Afenifere others back president. Tinubu inherited Buhari's economic policies. Ohane's Middle Belt others reply ACF. That's what you find on the on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Well, I just feel that there's more to be done in looking at the economic situation beyond talking about 2027 presidency. I think it's rather distracting, so to say. But then it is what it is for politicians and their allied groups. Because there are many groups that you think are non-political, but they are indeed the bedrock and the hot seat of politics. ECPA's terror charges, FG presses for extradition as IPOB disowns Biafra agitator. You find that also on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. PDP postpones next meeting as North Central insists on chair. That's on page 30 of the Punch newspaper. 21 states enroll for AFDB 850 billion naira agri scheme. It's on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. FG governors decide on state police next week. It's on page 16 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Lagos 3 trillion naira 2025 budget prioritizes infrastructure, tourism. You find that also reported in the Punch newspaper, precisely on page 6. National grid collapse. NEC panel to boost power generation in states. Interesting. Find that there. That does it there.
Alright, from the Punch, I will take the Vanguard. On the Vanguard of this morning, we have this one terrorism presidency. Mom, defense headquarters thrilled over arrest of Simon Ekpa for others. They have this rider, government to of Finland arrests Simon Ekpa for crimes related to terrorism. We have nothing to say yet, says IPOP. Why we won't comment now, presidency. Defense headquarters excited, hopes EPA will be extradited to Nigeria to face justice. And some would say, with the arrest of Simon Ekpa now stop the nefarious activities of IPOP in the East? Well, the question. Are you answering that?
Well, that might be a question for IPOP to answer.
All right, if it will or will not, please check page 5 or the Vanguard for details of that story. The 2025, why we were proposing 3 trillion naira budget. Sonwolu gives reasons there, and you find his reasons on page 10 of the Vanguard. Tax reform will be on side of Nigerians, says the National Assembly. Read this on page 22 of the Vanguard. We strongly support Tinubu's reforms, says IMFND. Just last week, IMF says Tinubu's reforms are not working, and now they're supporting, strongly supporting, and one wonders what role exactly is IMF playing in all of this? Well, check why maybe Mr. President has been able to, explain better to the IMF MD. Find the read on page 19 of Vanguard this morning. These more stories you find on the Vanguard.
Now let's check the New Telegraph newspaper of this morning. New Telegraph newspaper is next, and it leads with this story on page 4 of the paper. How Atiku Ayu made Tinubu president in 2023. That's coming from Bode George. And you find the writer urges former VP to drop 2027 presidential ambition, says some members already working for APC's 2027 victory. And asks Tukul, Umubodo, Ali, Ghana, others, be quiet. You find details on page 4 of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. Aviation, FG's pension liability hits 250 billion naira, may hamper concession. That's on the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper. Okay, some more stories I've not taken. INEC moves to end, NEC moves to end grid collapse. Okay, we took the story all along. Details of this and many more you find in the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. We've taken many of them in the other papers.
Okay, from that we have the Daily Independent. On the Daily Independent, Adamawa Kebi, FCT delay decision on state police. That gives states FCT 1 week to submit report. Raises committee on national electrification to check grid collapse. And REMFAC agency that sets salary structures for public officials broke. It's broke, but it sets salary for other public officials. Well, you find details of this on the front page of the Daily Independent to pages 28 and 7 there. You find the read there. And we have this one, Senate okays Tinubu's 1.767 trillion naira loan request within 48 hours. You find details of that on the front page of the Daily Independent as well. The story of the Finnish police arrest of IPOP Simon Ekpa over terrorism charges. Also is on the front page of the Daily Independent. And this one, Nigeria loses $28 billion annually to power outages. The details on page 7 of the Daily Independent. Tinubu's loans bring in unbearable pressure on economy, says Atiku. And details of that is on page 6 of the Daily Independent. And still on that page 6, Atiku, I give Tinubu opportunity to be president, says Ode George. And says, laments some PDP members working with APC ahead of 2027. Well, NAS replaces death sentence for drug traffickers. Find details of that on page 7 of the Daily Independent. And on the Daily Independent, you have this one. 100 million Nigerian children at risk of climate emergency. UNICEF alerts. What sort of climate emergency it is? Find details on page 6 of the Daily Independent this morning. And that will be it from the Daily Independent.
Let's go sporting this morning. Let's check the Punch Sports Extra. Let's find some sports stories there. My journey from peach to first class degree. Interesting story you find there. That's from Paulina Ozokon Jr. It's an exclusive interview. You find details there. With a mindset that helped me become the first person to bag a first class in my department, I believe I will be among the players that will win the World Cup for Nigeria. That's a quote from that interview. I think it's very inspiring. Check details from Punch Sports Extra today. Arsenal prepare golfer offer. You find that's also in the Punch. Plot Martinez swap. It's also in the Punch Extra this morning. That does it there. Check details of this and many more from the papers we checked today. We've been able to check, we took stories from some of these papers, the Daily Times, Daily Trust, and so on and so forth. Please check details of those stories and many more there. We go on our first break on the Outlook. When we return, we'll be talking issues surrounding state police and the debate thereon. Please stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back.
Leadership is not a package where you take it and say, here it is, I give you the package. Leadership comes from what you do, how you do it, how you live, what have you acquired in terms of your training, your experience, your track record, and all that. And what I'm saying is that the young people must strive. They shouldn't expect it to be a parcel delivered by DHL to them. And they must know that nothing comes just for nothing. You work for it.
solution that we need to fight the current insecurity that we have in our country. Let's look at what we were before. This country at some point in its life had what we call native authority police. And then we knew how effective it was. Myself, I met some of them in the service when I joined the police before I crossed over to NSO SSS. And we knew how effective those people were at that time. And what gave them this opportunity to be effective is the fact that they are recruited, trained, and live almost within their area of let me say, nationality.
Okay.
Not just nationality, but nationality, where they naturally were born and raised and things like that. So we really need them. And if you look at our present security agencies and looking at our size all over the country, you agree with me that we still have so much of ungoverned spaces that cannot be manned that has not been manned effectively by the existing security agents. And so when we have the state police at that level, every nook and cranny of their states, they will be able to deploy, particularly areas that they know that the Nigerian police, the civil defense, and so on are not on ground. That is not to say that even when they are on ground, they will not be deployed. But certainly, I believe that they will contribute in no small measure to the kind of insecurity that we have.
But Mr. Abu, do you share the sentiment of some that there could also be possible abuse of the introduction of state police, especially by the political class?
You see, this is the area that I love at Nigerians. Is there anything that Nigerians don't abuse? We have seen accusations over and over again against INEC, that is a federal agency, in conducting election. Even the existing security agencies are accused of being used by some state officials, doing their biddings. I think what we should do as a nation is for us to rise up, also to challenge these political elements that want to take advantage of this establishment against their opponents. And as long as we continue to be afraid of them and we cannot deal with the situation, and then the vacuum will still be there and we will continue to pay dearly for it. Are we saying we cannot find how to deal with the situation? Because I know that so many things are not working well. Our justice system is not delivering the way people would want. This is a country where both lawyers and the judges rely on technicalities even when they see the obvious reasons. So there are so many things that we need to work on, but we must continue to work on them continually. We cannot be afraid of some politicians that will take advantage of it, and then we will not do the needful.
All right, but Mr. Abu, you are a security expert, and so I'd like to know what your view would be on the modus operandi for the deployment of state police in Nigeria, if indeed the tool effectively aid the current efforts at nipping insecurity in the bud.
You see, this is something that the authorities by now would have done a good study, would have had a good committee that would have done a good study. I mean, looking at what takes place in other countries, and then see how we can imbibe them. But for now, let me even give you this. Do you know that the existing security so amount of funding to security agencies in your area. But when we establish the state police, it gives them a responsibility. And so certainly there will be what kind of functions and what will be their limitations.
Okay.
What will be their limitations? For instance, when there are serious cases of murder, for instance, where the Nigerian police has the capacity in terms of forensic and technology to investigate, such cases will be transferred to the Nigerian police after arrest and initial investigation. Cases that has to do with armed robbery, yes. Even the kind of armament that will be available to them, the authority will look at it. And of course, don't forget also that those armament, like their armory, must be overlooked by a superior authority, either by the Nigerian police or by the military,
Okay.
so that they don't get out of hand in acquiring what they may use out of context. So there is so much for them to organize.
All right. So how might the integrated with existing federal law enforcement agencies?
Yeah, that
Is limited. Won't that also form some kind of limitation to discharging or effectively policing the states?
no. Let me say this.
Okay.
When they start and then we see how they are performing,
it's obvious that Nigerians are divided in their thoughts of state policing or not state policing. But majorly, the opponents are of the belief that there could be politicization and abuse of human rights. So, how can the public, how can they be carried along to know that there would be respect for human rights by this state police if eventually it takes off? facing or battling with lack of resources even to properly fund existing agencies and ministries. So, having the state police, do you foresee funding it being an issue?
I do not believe that.
It's Friday, so enjoy your weekend.
All right, thank you so much. Let's do this again Monday morning, God willing. I am Sunday Kolawole. Enjoy the rest of the day. Good morning.